It is September 8th, 1986. Across the United States, millions of television sets flicker to life at roughly the same hour. In living rooms in Atlanta, in kitchens in Seattle, in break rooms in Boston, a woman appears on screen. She is not a Hollywood starlet. She is not a polished anchor reading from a teleprompter. She is a woman who laughs too loudly, who cries without apology, who leans forward in her chair and makes you feel, inexplicably, impossibly, that she is talking only to you. Her name is Oprah Winfrey, and on this morning, her syndicated talk show goes national, broadcasting to 138 cities simultaneously. The television landscape will never be the same. Within weeks, her ratings don't just climb, they detonate. She doesn't dethrone Phil Donahue, the king of daytime television, so much as render his throne irrelevant. She creates an entirely new category: intimate, confessional, transformational television. She doesn't interview guests, she bears witness to them. Nobody in the industry had seen this coming. Nobody, that is, except Oprah herself. Because this woman, who was born without running water in rural Mississippi, who survived abuse that would have destroyed most people, who was told repeatedly that she was too emotional, too black, too much, knew something the television industry did not. She knew that truth, spoken bravely, was the most powerful force in any room. Welcome to Visionary Chronicles. What you are about to hear is not a success story in the conventional sense. It is not a tale of a gifted child gliding effortlessly upward on a current of luck and privilege. It is something far more remarkable than that. This is the story of a girl born in January in a Mississippi winter to a teenage mother who was not prepared to be a parent and a father who did not yet know she existed. A girl who grew up on a farm so remote that poverty was not a word she had a word for. It was simply the texture of daily life. A girl who, beginning at the age of 9, was sexually abused by people she was supposed to trust, and who carried that secret alone, in silence, for years. This is the story of a teenager who became pregnant at 14, who gave birth prematurely to a son who lived only a few weeks, and who somehow found a way to keep moving forward. It is the story of a young woman who walked into radio stations and television studios and refused to be invisible, who negotiated for ownership of her show at a time when Black women were not expected to negotiate for anything, who built a media empire that spanned television, film, publishing, and philanthropy, and who, in 2003, became the first Black female billionaire in the history of the world. This is the story of Oprah Winfrey, and it begins exactly where you would least expect a dynasty to be born, in the red clay fields of Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Kosciuszko, Mississippi, January 29th, 1954. A baby girl is born to Vernita Lee, an 18-year-old housemaid, and Vernon Winfrey, a 20-year-old soldier serving in the United States Army. The two are not married. They are barely acquainted. The child is given the name Orpah, taken from the Book of Ruth in the Bible, though a clerical error on her birth certificate, and the simple confusion of neighbors who could not quite get their mouths around it would eventually turn Orpah into Oprah. And so, a name was changed, almost accidentally, and the world received someone it did not yet know it needed. For the first 6 years of her life, Oprah lives with her maternal grandmother, Hattie Mae Lee, on a farm in rural Mississippi. The farm has no indoor plumbing, no running water, and no electricity beyond what a single light bulb in the ceiling can provide. Hattie Mae is a woman of fierce faith and fiercer standards. She teaches the child to read before kindergarten. She dresses her in dresses sewn from potato sacks and marches her to church every Sunday, where Oprah quickly discovers that she has a gift. She can speak. She recites scripture from memory. She delivers speeches that make grown adults cry, and she understands, at an age when most children are still learning the alphabet, that words have weight. That language, wielded carefully, can change a room. But the world beyond the farm is not kind to a black child in 1950s Mississippi. Hattie Mae is protective, but she is also strict in the manner of a woman who understands that the world will not offer her granddaughter many second chances. The foundation Hattie Mae builds, the discipline, the reverence for education, the belief that a sharp mind is a shield, will matter more than anyone can yet understand. When Oprah is 6 years old, she is sent to live with her mother, Vernita Lee, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It is supposed to be an improvement. It is not. Milwaukee is cold in ways that go beyond weather. Vernita works long hours as a maid, struggling to provide for a household that grows more complicated when she has 2 more children by different fathers. Oprah is largely left to herself. She is lonely in the specific, aching way that children are lonely when they are surrounded by people, but feel unseen by all of them. Then, beginning when Oprah is 9 years old, she is sexually abused. The abusers are people within the family circle, a cousin, an uncle, a family friend, men whom she has been taught to trust, men whom she has no language to accuse, no framework to even fully understand. She tells no one. She carries the secret the way children carry unbearable things, deep inside, where she can almost pretend it isn't there. The abuse continues for years. It will take decades for Oprah to speak about it publicly, and when she finally does, on national television, she will change the conversation about abuse in America forever. At 13, Oprah runs away. Or perhaps it would be more accurate to say she runs toward her father, Vernon Winfrey, who has by this time settled in Nashville, Tennessee, married a woman named Zelma, and built a life of quiet, deliberate stability. Vernon Winfrey is not an easy man. He is demanding and exacting, a man who believes in punctuality and discipline and the absolute, non-negotiable importance of education. He requires Oprah to read a book every week and write a book report on it. He requires her to learn 5 new vocabulary words each day. He will not accept excuses. He will not accept mediocrity. And Oprah, who has spent years adrift in neglect and chaos, finds, to her own surprise, that she is desperate for exactly this kind of structure. Nashville gives her a foothold. She becomes an honor student. She joins the debate team. She discovers that the gift she first found in her grandmother's church, the ability to speak with feeling and conviction and precision, can take her places that poverty and circumstance were supposed to make impossible. At 16, she wins an oratory contest that earns her a full scholarship to Tennessee State University. At 17, while still in high school, she lands a part-time job at WVOL, a radio station in Nashville, reading the news on air. Her voice, even then, has something in it that makes people stop what they are doing, something warm, something true. She enrolls at Tennessee State University, studying communication, and before she has finished her degree, she is offered a position at WTVF-TV in Nashville, making her, at 19, the first black female television news anchor in the city's history. The world, it seems, cannot wait for her to graduate. In 1976, a talent executive at WJZ-TV in Baltimore, Maryland, sees something in a 22-year-old Oprah Winfrey that he cannot quite articulate but cannot ignore. He hires her as a co-anchor for the evening news. It seems on paper like a breakthrough. In practice, it is a crucible. The producers at WJZ are not sure what to do with her. She is too emotional for hard news. She has a habit of becoming genuinely invested in the stories she is covering, of letting feeling flicker across her face when professional detachment is the expectation. She is criticized for her appearance. She is sent to a salon that destroys her hair with a bad chemical treatment, leaving her partially bald. She is told, in a series of professional indignities that would have broken someone less resilient, that she is not quite right for the role she was hired to fill, and so they move her. In 1977, the station reassigns Oprah to co-host a local morning talk show called People Are Talking. It is by any conventional measure a demotion. Talk shows in 1977 are not prestigious. They are the province of lightweight conversation and cooking demonstrations and the occasional celebrity passing through town. What happens next is one of those moments in television history that people later describe as inevitable, though nothing about it was inevitable at all. Oprah sits down across from her first guest on People Are Talking, and she is immediately, completely, undeniably at home. The format that had seemed like a punishment turns out to be the precise shape of her talent. She listens in a way that makes guests feel heard at a molecular level. She asks the question that everyone at home is thinking, but that no polished professional host would dare to voice. She laughs from somewhere real. She does not perform warmth. She radiates it. People Are Talking goes from an also-ran to a local sensation. For years, Oprah holds court in Baltimore, honing her craft, developing the interviewing style that will eventually make her the most influential broadcaster in American history. She is building something, even if she does not yet have a name for what she is building. In January 1984, a television station in Chicago comes calling. WLS-TV wants her to take over AM Chicago, a morning talk show so chronically low-rated that it has become something of a local embarrassment. Chicago is a major market, the third largest in the country. Taking the job means stepping onto a much larger stage with a show that nobody is watching. It means competing, eventually, with Phil Donahue, who originates his wildly popular national program from Chicago and is, at this point, the undisputed king of American talk television. Oprah takes the job. Within 1 month, AM Chicago is the highest-rated morning talk show in the city. Within a year, it has been expanded from 30 minutes to an hour. By 1985, it is renamed The Oprah Winfrey Show, and the calls are beginning to come in from television syndicators who want to know if they can share this phenomenon with the rest of the country. But 1985 brings another revelation entirely. A director named Steven Spielberg is casting a film adaptation of Alice Walker's Pulitzer Prize-winning novel, The Color Purple, and his casting agent comes across a tape of Oprah Winfrey. Spielberg's instinct is immediate. He calls her in for an audition. Oprah reads for the role of Sophia, a fierce, wounded woman of tremendous dignity and spirit. She does not get a callback. She gets the role. She goes to work on a film set for the first time in her life with no formal training and no preparation beyond the full life she has lived. And she delivers a performance of such raw, ravaged authenticity that the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences nominates her for Best Supporting Actress. She does not win the Oscar, but the nomination tells the industry something it had not anticipated. Oprah Winfrey contains multitudes. And then comes September 8th, 1986. The Oprah Winfrey Show launches into national syndication, 138 cities, approximately 10 million viewers in the first week alone. The Phil Donahue Show, which has dominated daytime television for nearly 2 decades, will be canceled within a decade. A new era begins, and it has Oprah's name on it. What happens in the years immediately following syndication is a masterclass in strategic self-determination. Oprah looks at her situation with clear eyes and understands something that most people in her position would not have the nerve to act on. She is the product. She is the reason people watch. And she does not own herself. In 1986, she negotiates to own her show outright. She founds Harpo Productions, Oprah spelled backward, and becomes the first black woman, and only the third woman in American television history, to own her own production studio. She is not waiting for someone to offer her a seat at the table. She is building the table, and she is deciding who sits at it. In 1996, a controversy erupts that tests her ownership of herself in a different way. During an episode discussing the risks of mad cow disease, which was at the time devastating cattle herds in Britain, Oprah says on air that the coverage has made her too scared to eat another burger. The Texas Beef Group is not amused. They file a lawsuit under a Texas law that allows agricultural producers to sue for the disparagement of perishable food products. The damages they seek exceed $12 million. Oprah moves her entire production to Amarillo, Texas for the duration of the 6-week trial. She shows up every day, impeccably dressed and thoroughly composed, and she fights. The jury deliberates and returns a verdict. Not guilty on all counts. Oprah walks out of the courthouse and into the cold Texas air and says simply that she is still standing. She is. She always is. In 1996, she also launches the Oprah's Book Club segment on her show, and the literary world is never the same. Publishers begin using a new term, the Oprah effect. A book selected for Oprah's book club can sell more than 1 million copies in a matter of weeks. Toni Morrison, Wally Lamb, Cormac McCarthy, authors ranging from Nobel laureates to first-time novelists, find their books transformed overnight from niche titles to mass phenomena. She doesn't just recommend books, she creates readers. She makes an entire generation of Americans feel that literature is not something that happens to other people. It is something that belongs to them, too. By the turn of the millennium, Oprah Winfrey is something that America had never quite produced before and has not quite produced since. A cultural institution that is also a living human being. She has her own magazine, the Oprah magazine, which launches in 2000 and immediately becomes one of the best-selling magazine launches in publishing history. She has her own production company, her own satellite radio channel, her own website. She does not have a media empire so much as she has a media ecosystem, and she is both its son and its gardener. In 2003, Forbes magazine makes it official. Oprah Winfrey becomes the first black female billionaire in American history. The number itself, $1 billion, is almost beside the point. What matters is what the number represents. That a girl born to nothing in a county that most Americans could not find on a map had built something that could not be quantified in the ordinary terms of celebrity or success. She had built a kind of authority, a moral authority. The authority of a woman who had been through the fire and come out not hardened, but luminous. She is not without her struggles in this period. Her relationship with her own body is a public battle that she wages across the decades with a candor that is both brave and sometimes painful to witness. She speaks openly about her weight, her binges, her victories, and her backsliding, at a time when most public figures guard their bodies like state secrets. And in doing so, she gives millions of women permission to be imperfect, to be works in progress, to be human, In 2011, after 25 years, the Oprah Winfrey Show comes to an end. It is not canceled. Networks do not cancel Oprah Winfrey. She decides in the full sovereignty of her own judgment that the show has run its course, that there is more to do, that the next chapter is already waiting. She says goodbye to her studio audience and to her millions of viewers with the composure of a woman who knows that endings and beginnings are the same thing, seen from different angles. The next chapter is OWN, the Oprah Winfrey Network, a cable television channel launched in partnership with Discovery that gives her a full broadcasting platform to continue her mission of what she has always called using television not just to entertain, but to awaken. The network's early years are rocky, a reminder that even Oprah Winfrey is not immune to the brutal economics of cable television. But she persists. She produces original programming, most notably the dramatic series Greenleaf and Queen Sugar, and OWN gradually finds its footing as a distinctive voice in the television landscape. On January 7, 2018, Oprah Winfrey takes the stage at the Golden Globe Awards to accept the Cecil B. DeMille Award for outstanding contributions to the world of entertainment. She speaks for 9 minutes. By the time she is finished, the phrase "Oprah for President" is trending globally, and grown adults who cover politics for a living are asking each other, in all seriousness, whether it might happen. The speech is a crystallization of everything she has always been: fierce, generous, specific, visionary, and utterly, completely herself. Her personal life is, in her own telling, one of the great unconventional love stories of her generation. Her friendship with Gayle King, journalist, broadcaster, best friend, is a relationship she has described as the most important of her life outside of her family. Her partnership with Stedman Graham, a businessman and author she has been with since 1986, is a relationship she has chosen not to define by legal marriage, understanding that for her, some forms of freedom matter more than some forms of convention. And then there is the work that, by her own accounting, matters more to her than any television show or business venture. The Oprah Winfrey Leadership Academy for Girls opened in Henley on Klip, South Africa in January 2007. The school was built at a personal cost of approximately $40 million and was dedicated to educating girls from disadvantaged backgrounds to become the leaders their country needs. When she opened it, Oprah said that Nelson Mandela had asked her to build it and that she had not known how to say no to Nelson Mandela. But the truth runs deeper than that. This is a woman who was once a girl with nothing, who had been told in 1,000 ways that she did not matter, who understood at a level of bone and blood and history what it means to give a girl a room of her own, a book of her own, a future of her own. She has donated more than $400 million to charitable causes over the course of her career. Her Angel Network, launched in 1997, mobilized her viewers to contribute to community service projects around the world. She has funded scholarships, built schools, supported disaster relief efforts, and devoted herself to the proposition that wealth, if it is to mean anything, must circulate. What do we take from a life like this? What are we supposed to carry with us when we leave the story of Oprah Winfrey behind and return to our own lives, our own struggles, our own rooms with their particular walls and their particular silences? The first lesson is the one she has spoken about more than any other. Speak your truth. It sounds simple. It is one of the hardest things a human being can do. Oprah was told, implicitly and explicitly, throughout her early life, that her truth, the truth of abuse, of poverty, of a black girl from Mississippi who had the audacity to want more, was not a truth that the world was prepared to receive. The television industry told her she was too emotional. Advertisers and producers told her, in the language of ratings and formats and demographics, to be more palatable, more contained, more like what television had always been. She refused. Not in a dramatic, performative way, but in the most radical way possible. She simply kept being herself, kept telling the truth, kept insisting that the things she had lived through were worth talking about, that the experiences of ordinary people, particularly ordinary women, particularly ordinary Black women, were worth the full seriousness of a national broadcast. And the world, which had been waiting without knowing it was waiting, exhaled. The second lesson is about vulnerability as strength. This is perhaps the most counterintuitive thing Oprah Winfrey has ever demonstrated, which is saying something, because her life is full of counterintuitive things. In a culture that rewards confidence and punishes doubt, she built an empire on the willingness to say, "I don't have it all figured out. I struggle with my weight. I was abused and I survived, and it still marks me. I have made mistakes, and I have been afraid, and I have stood in front of millions of people and not been entirely sure of what I was doing." This honesty, radical, deliberate, consistent, did not make her audience trust her less. It made them trust her absolutely, because she was saying, in the way that only truth can say it, "I see you. I know what it is to be imperfect. You are not alone." The third lesson is about building something from authenticity rather than strategy. Oprah Winfrey's career is studied in business schools, and rightly so. The commercial architecture of what she built is genuinely brilliant. But the architecture rests on a foundation that no business school course can teach. She knew who she was. She knew what she cared about. She knew what she was willing to do and what she was not willing to do. And she held that knowledge like a compass, especially in the moments when the industry was pointing her somewhere else entirely. The Oprah effect, the capacity to make every title she touched into a bestseller, every cause she endorsed into a movement, was not the product of marketing genius. It was the product of trust, and trust, in Oprah's case, was the product of a woman who had never asked her audience to believe in something she did not believe in herself. The fourth, and perhaps the deepest lesson, is about turning pain into purpose. Oprah Winfrey did not transcend her childhood. She carried it. She carried the little girl in the potato sack dress who read for her grandmother's church. She carried the 9-year-old who had no language for what was being done to her. She carried the 14-year-old who sat in a hospital room with a premature son who would not survive. She carried all of it forward, not as a burden to be hidden, but as a resource to be shared. When she spoke on her show about abuse, about grief, about shame, she was not being self-indulgent. She was creating a space where millions of people who had never spoken those words in public could hear them spoken without shame, could feel themselves, perhaps for the first time, understood. That is the legacy of Oprah Winfrey. Not the $1 billion, though the $1 billion matters as evidence of what is possible. Not the magazine or the network or the school in South Africa, though all of those things matter profoundly. The legacy is the permission she gave. The permission to be a full human being in public. The permission to speak about what has been done to you. The permission to want more, to build more, to be more than the circumstances that greeted you at birth. A girl was born in Mississippi in January 1954 to nothing. She became, through the sheer insistence of her own truth, one of the most consequential human beings of the 20th and 21st centuries. That is not an accident. That is not luck. That is what happens when a person decides, in defiance of everything the world has told them, to become entirely, unapologetically themselves. Remember that. Whatever room you are sitting in right now, whatever wall you are staring at, whatever dream you have been told is too much or too big or too far from where you started, remember Oprah Winfrey. Remember the potato sack dress. Remember the radio station in Nashville. Remember the 9-year-old girl who had no one to tell. And remember that she told us anyway. She told all of us. And we are all, in ways we may not even fully know, better for it. This has been Visionary Chronicles.